Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Ash Renfro, one of the college football contributors here on our nice little evening chat we're going to have going for you every Friday. I hope you'll join us. It's called From the Stands, and we are all about college football. Let me give some props here. About 3 months ago, user Benedicto Charleston posed the idea for a college game day-esque show that celebrated fans, their biases, our community here, and all that. Since then, small team of us have come together and been diligently working on making that happen. So guess what? Here it is.
Hey, so From the Stands is college football for fans, from fans. We're not special. We're not just talking heads owned by a mouse. We're fans just like you. And we've got favorite teams, and we've got teams that we can't stand. So let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. You already met Ash. Ash, where you coming from?
Coming to you from Birmingham, Alabama. I'm a Bama grad, fan enjoying the good life here under the reign of Coach Saban. It was miserable before, thank you. There's some other Bama grads here in Birmingham, but I think there's probably some people from Auburn.
I'm JJ Apostolico, Penn State grad as of 2018, living in Little Nazareth, Pennsylvania. If you don't know where that is, it's, as everyone in state colleges say, just outside Philadelphia.
Very nice. And I'm Will Rainier. I'm a diehard Oklahoma State fan living under duress in Austin, Texas. It's pretty rough here and it's hot as hell, but guys, football is back. We made it through the off season.
It's fantastic, man. So glad it's starting back up again. High school actually kicking off in my neck of the woods. I don't know about you guys.
Yep, this week got some high school football here. And let me tell you, Little Nazareth, it's not the best, but it's still football, you know.
What are you guys drinking out there tonight?
Well, I don't want to be too presumptuous here. Tonight, I'm drinking a drink that is a sponsor of the SEC, but I'm going to cover the label because they didn't pay this week. And another one that is the label is, well, it starts with Jim.
I got some bourbon in my Penn State Rose Bowl cup here from 2017. It's going to be a good night.
Nice, and I'm rocking the homebrew right here. Hey, if any of you guys out there want us to drink out of your pint glass, I'll be more than happy to accept a free pint glass and maybe a couple of bucks, and we can bump your restaurant, your whatever you want right here on the show. We'll drink out of your sponsored pint glass. So this week I'm sticking with OSU. They're not paying either, but you know I'm more than happy to give them the free publicity.
Yeah, let's just throw that out there right now. If you see any of the three of us coming around, if you're somewhere in Central Alabama or Eastern PA or Southern Texas, and you see us come around with a flyer, that's a quick way for you to get to know you and get your product out there. So do it.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Hey, so big off season. We made it through. Probably the biggest story of the entire off season was the transfer portal and how that has affected college football landscape. Lots of guys moving around. It's almost like free agency out there. It's craziness right now. So let's talk through some of the winners and losers. What do you guys think? Who are our transfer portal winners from the off season?
Hey, let's kick it off here with the guy that took off out of Tuscaloosa. He meant so much to Alabama fans. He was on three teams that went to the national title game. Jalen Hurts taking off out there to Norman, and he's going to have a very productive, I think, time. I think he's a winner in the transfer portal.
As much as it pains me to say that, I have to agree with you.
Sorry, man.
Strictly factually speaking, this is not my opinion. These are legitimate facts. OU has had back-to-back Heisman winners. They've had back-to-back #1 overall picks. I don't think Jalen's going to be either one of those things, but you know what quarterback wouldn't want to go play in that system? So
absolutely, and I didn't put down money on the Heisman thing, but I think the guy is going to be productive in Norman.
I'll just say I hope just for all of our sakes that it's not OU and Bama in the first round of the playoffs, because that means we're going to have 4 weeks of just wall-to-wall coverage of
interspersed with ESPN following Zion around in the NBA.
That's going to be the only 2 things we get.
JJ, who you got in the transfer portals?
So a winner that I have is Shane Buechele, who went to SMU. He lost out on the job at Texas, which might seem like a loss, but gets to stay in his home state in Texas, go into a team that's going to throw the ball a lot with Coach Sonny Dykes coming from Cal, who may not be the most successful as a head coach, but he does have a track record of putting some quarterbacks into the NFL with Jared Goff and Davis Webb. So couldn't have asked for a much better situation. When you don't get your dream job, you get your second best is pretty good.
And that's a good one.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with that. I've got Justin Fields, and I'm going to talk about him more later. But, there was just no way he was going to start behind Fromm. Didn't want to wait around, and he ended up going to Ohio State, which puts him in position to contend for a playoff spot. So between him and Jalen, I think both of these guys got out of bad situations or unfavorable situations, but still have an opportunity to play for a national championship. So it's hard to fault them. How about some losers? Who you guys think lost out on the transfer portal this year?
I'll start off here. I think Brandon Wimbush leaving Notre Dame and heading down to UCF, and I know the situation with trying to rehab that stud quarterback that you had down there for the last couple of years, but a pretty adequate step in there happened. And I know UCF lost to LSU in the bowl game and everything, but still looked pretty good. Darryl Mack, I think, might still be the head guy down there, and Brandon, I don't know, man. I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to resume that head spot. So it may feel like a little bit of a loss to him, all as talented as he is.
Just to jump in there a little bit, I know Wimbush will start the season. It's just whether or not he'll be able to hold Mack off once he comes back from injury. But I think that's still a win for him going to one of the most productive offenses in the country. He's still gotta admire, even if it is one of the Power 6 conferences, not the Power 5 conference. It's still a pretty good offense to put yourself into.
Yeah, I'm not typically very high on any Notre Dame quarterback. I met Brady Quinn one time. That's probably the most starstruck I've ever been meeting another team's quarterback. But since then, they just kind of really haven't panned out the way that we thought they would. Definitely haven't won the games like we hoped they would. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to put it all together. JJ, who's your loser this year?
So I have my biggest loser this year is Katon Thompson at Mississippi State. We're talking about a guy who was in line to receive the starting job after Nick Fitzgerald graduated. He filled in for him when Fitzgerald was suspended at the beginning of the year last year, and he did a pretty good job. He showed he was an effective runner, and his passing needed work, but he still had a year to work with Joe Moorhead, who did a lot of great things with Trace McSorley up at Penn State. But it was a Penn State transfer that ends up taking his job in Tommy Stevens, and he gets the nod from knowing Moorhead's system for 2 years and just being a more polished passer right away. So now Thompson's going to have to hope that he can grab the job for his final year of eligibility, because he's already redshirted, so he can't really sit out a year and try to transfer because he's already out of luck here.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with somebody who's probably a little bit more well-known, Kelly Bryant, going from Clemson to Columbia. But, at least the Clemson fans are saying at least it wasn't Columbia, South Carolina. But, if he wants to play, there are a ton of situations out there that he could have gone into that I think would have been a better situation for him. Missouri's kind of a middle of the pack in the SEC East, really not even a front runner. And they can't even play in a bowl game this year. So to be honest, a Citrus Bowl was kind of their ceiling. So I'm not sure what it was that he saw about it. I hope nothing but the best for him, but it just seems interesting with all the opportunities that were out there for a quarterback to go to that he would pick Mizzou.
I think it was a great breakdown.
All right, who else you guys got for transfer portal losers?
So I got a failure, at least what looks like a failure on the outside that I think is actually a success. At least my homer bias is kind of showing through, trying to make a positive out of a negative here. Penn State as a team definitely looks like they lost the transfer portal battle this year. They saw 12 players leave in the transfer portal in one season. Definitely one of the highest in the country. The reason I think that it might signal a positive, maybe not for this year, but for 2020, is 11 of those 12 players were upperclassmen that were getting forced out by more talented underclassmen. So you see guys like Juwan Johnson, who was a senior wide receiver, going to Oregon because he was not going to be a starting receiver this year, with freshmen and sophomores kind of coming up to take his job. So it might be some growing pains this year for the Nittany Lions, but I think this transfer portal season indicates potential success in the next 2 years.
Yeah, one guy that definitely didn't have success, Miami running back Asa Martin. He was the number 9 running back in the 2018 class, signed with Auburn, transfers to Miami. 8 days later, Mark Richt decides he's going to retire out of the blue. And then he gets hurt during spring ball, and now he's back in the portal. And this has to be a worst-case scenario for a player, because now he's going to have to go to a new school, learn a new system, new staff, and just hope he can stay healthy enough to contribute. So my question for you guys, As we look at this situation specifically, why are we have guys kind of these multiple transfer guys and bouncing around? And do you think it's an indicator of maybe more of a trend, or do you think this is more of an anomaly?
Definitely not an anomaly. It's going to I think it's going to be how college football is now. I've gotten used to the last 7 or 8 years in Tuscaloosa, basically guys being there 3 years and that's it. I'm going to say losers from my own viewpoint, and then we'll jump back to you, is half of Alabama's 2018 defense. They've transferred portal through the NFL draft. And so for Alabama, that winds up being a loss. I mean, you're just losing all this depth, and you get 3 years. So the trends are, you asked about trends. Yes, guys will enter the college draft or the transfer portal. Yes, guys are going to continue to go after 3 years if they're worth their salt to the NFL. It's a tough deal.
Yeah, it's hard for me to commiserate with you and cry over guys going to the NFL draft early. It's a real rough position you're in.
That's okay. I've got my ways of dealing with it.
Yeah, I think that the transfer portal is going to be here to stay. You just look at the top 8 teams in college football this year, or the top 7, and you're talking about 7.
Show mascot.
You're talking about 5 of those teams having a transfer quarterback as their starter at the top end of college football. So it's one of those things where the top guys are going to find their way to the top programs, and it's going to continue to be that way. So they position themselves to be able to go to the NFL. Like Ash said, that's really what it's all about for some of these guys. They're trying to put themselves in the best position, to actually make a profit off what they've been doing for, the first 21 years of their life. So, I mean, it's not going to go away. And I think it's going to be, I think it's a good thing for the players. It's a good thing going forward for college football.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Looks like Ash is experiencing the first of many technical difficulties. Ash, if you can hear me out there, turn your camera off, turn it back on, and join us. Hey, so players are just now able to do the transfer portal, but the coaches have been doing this for years, and we call it the coaching carousel. So let me start out with what I think was kind of the coup of the year. Or at least in their minds, does Houston really think they've struck a will with Dana Holgorsen, getting him to transfer from West Virginia to Houston? What do you guys think? All right, hey, I think we're all back now. Ash, welcome back. Had a little bit of technical difficulties, but a break like that would have been a perfect spot for somebody to advertise on the show, because today's episode is being sponsored by nobody. That's right. We have absolutely nobody to advertise here, and that's a damn shame, because that would have been the most perfect spot to play whatever it is you want to pay us to play. If you have a product that you want people to spend money on, or you want people to know about, shoot us a line at fromthestandsmedia@gmail.com, and we will use spots like that to read almost anything in the world to raise your brand awareness, get you some customers, and turn those leads into sales. So I think we're still talking about Dana Holgorsen. Let me get back up here. And Ash, what do you have to say about Dana Holgorsen? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, a couple things just about him. Namely, he's going to a place where I think he's actually going to be able to walk in and have some success. But that was the thought also at West Virginia, and he did have success. I mean, it was a good recruiting place for him. Houston, he's got a lot more local competition, I think, for the recruits, whereas maybe West Virginia was Ohio State and Penn State, and we won't consider Michigan. Sorry, guys. It's just I think he's going to have a chance of success at Houston. I just don't know. It's a good move for their program. I'll say that.
Yeah. How short do you think his rope is there, JJ? How many wins does he need to justify the cost they're paying for him?
Well, I think they're going to need to give him a little bit of time, because they definitely don't have the richest of recruits right now left by Applewhite after Herman left. Applewhite stepped in and didn't really continue. It's not like a Josh Heupel situation in UCF where he was able to continue the success of Scott Frost. Applewhite kind of really dropped off after Herman left. So he's going to have to stock the farm a little bit first. Mm-hmm. I'm not very high on Houston this year. I know we're getting into a little bit of Group of 5 talk here, but I don't see them competing with Memphis in the West Division this year. But I think even in that division, they do still have enough talent that they do need to be able to make a mid-tier bowl game for the AAC. They need to get 7-8 wins.
Are you willing to, right here on this show, to admit how wrong you were if they beat OU?
Absolutely. I don't think there's really much of a chance at all. I don't think they really have much of a puncher's chance to beat OU.
Don't think of that. I mean, let's say they up and beat the Sooners. I mean, it's one of those things where it could be a 62-55 type of fairness, whoever scores last. I mean, I don't think you can backtrack on your comments about whether Holgorsen can win there or not if he beats OU or if he loses to OU. It's just one of those things, man. I mean, he's got a little bit of work to do down there, and if they up and beat some people this year, then fantastic. It's a tribute to his coach and the athletes that were there. But if they get the crap kicked out of them weekly, it's a building program.
They're gonna have the chance to prove it too. They got Oklahoma and Washington State right out of the gate, so we'll see what they got here. They got 2 top 25 opponents and 1 college football playoff perennial contender right there too. So
and their neighbors to the west, they're out at College Station, have probably got the toughest schedule, and it doesn't have either of those teams on it, so it's tough.
All right, so the next coach I want to talk about in the coaching transfer portal, Manny Diaz. So how long has the offseason been that here we are in week 0, excited for Manny Diaz to coach at Miami after what he did to Temple? For you guys that don't remember, because it was in December, which feels like forever ago, left Miami to take the head coaching job at Temple. 3 weeks later, gets called back home to be the head coach at Miami after Rick up and retires. Are we okay with that? Are we okay with him kind of bouncing back and forth like that?
From my perspective, I'm unfortunately in the Pennsylvania area. I'm around some Temple grads, and from some of their perspective, they're happy that it happened. They're tired of all their coaches getting up and bouncing right away to go to their dream schools or go on to the next big thing, because that's kind of what they've been. So it started with Matt Brule, who jumped to Baylor, and now Jeff Collins jumping to Georgia Tech. They've started to do some really good things there, but they can't get someone that wants to stay there. So when you get a guy that realistically, if Mark Richt wouldn't have retired, he would have got fired after this year anyway, and Miami would have pegged Manny Diaz as their #1 guy to go get anyway. So while Manny Diaz would have been a good hire for a year for Temple, getting a guy in that, might stay around a little bit longer than Manny Diaz, it ends up okay for Temple. Not saying that I love the move by Manny Diaz, but probably was just a year earlier than it was going to be anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. Temple, where they're situationally located there from a geography standpoint, they also have one more thing they can be grateful for, and that is that they're not Rutgers.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I've got to blame the Miami athletic department on this one, though. They had to have known that they knew they weren't all in on Rick. They had to have known that he was kind of thinking about something like this going on. They had to know Diaz was about to leave, about to take the Temple job. So how did they not get this deal done earlier? Do you think that they really were just that blindsided by Mark Richt leaving early?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's probably a logical thing. I mean, Richt is not even approaching like what would you consider to be a college football retirement age or anything like that.
There's got to be something else to the story there.
Yeah, and let's also be honest. I mean, Canes fans, love you. I know where you're living and everything. It's a beautiful part of the world. Love it. But, man, the program has issues with people on the outside. And just wonder if Richt maybe didn't feel something or know something. I wouldn't be shocked if 365 days from now Miami's got some heat or something. But you did not hear that here.
I think it could just be Mark Richt blindsiding him. He doesn't exactly have the best track record in college football. I mean, he did some good things at Georgia for a little while, but you know how Georgia fans actually feel about Mark Richt. It is not a warm and fuzzy feeling, and it was starting to get that way with Miami fans as well. I think it got to a point where Rick probably got tired of just dealing with the criticism all the time, which is par for the course. But if you don't want to deal with it, you made your millions. Just get out.
I think we forget that sometimes. Sometimes people have got enough. They've had enough. That's it. There's no dark ulterior motive.
Yeah.
I think Georgia fans were a little delusional to think that Mark Richt could compete and win SEC championships every year. So he leaves that for a better situation, maybe a lower bar at Miami. But, all these Miami fans, for him coming down to see what he was able to do at Georgia, maybe they expected too much from him as well. But Manny Diaz is the guy in Miami now. And that takes us to the week 0 game of the week. 0. This is the only FBS game that we've got that features a ranked team, Miami and Florida, playing in Orlando at the Camping World Bowl. And so Florida comes in as the ranked team, saturated in their SEC bias, So obviously they're ranked. But Miami has had a little bit of success under Rick in his first year. And now with Manny Diaz at the helm, what do you think we can expect from the Hurricanes?
I'd like to just start off by saying thank God for this game. It has been a long time since Bama got pistol whipped by the Clemson Tigers. Okay, so I'm sort of just needing some healing, and it's not been able to happen this year so far. And also, this game, because of how early it is, makes this the historically longest college football season ever. 143 days from tomorrow to the national title game. So longest ever. Right? Yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting right there. I totally ripped it off from a guy on the radio, Mark Packer. So in any event.
Mark, your check is in the mail. Friend of the show, Mark.
He does a great job down there. But I think that, for the game breakdown itself, just a quick hit on it. Miami is in a place where they're starting again, honestly. I mean, we've talked about Manny Diaz coming in there, and I think they're starting again. They were not impressive last year, and frankly, 17 when the ball was really rolling for them. I think they got out to 8-0 or 9-0 maybe, and then it just fell off the cliff. I mean, it's starting over again.
The year of the turnover chain.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a gorgeous piece of jewelry.
They started off 10-0 in 2017, and then proceeded. They lost. They got beat by Pitt. We love to sneak up on those number 2, number 3.
Don't sleep on Pitt.
Don't sleep on the Panthers.
And then they got crushed by Clemson, crushed by Wisconsin. They haven't gotten anything back since then.
It's not there. So I mean, for that reason, Florida is I think they're gonna exert their dominance. It won't be a high scoring affair because it's Florida. It's Dan Mullen.
Well,
but they're going to be
don't forget, Manny Diaz was Dan Mullen's defensive coordinator twice at Mississippi State. Had 2 different 1-year tenures there. He knows this Mullen offense. He's practiced against it 5 days a week for at least 2 years. So I think Manny Diaz is in a unique position here to really give the Florida offense some trouble.
Yeah, he's got athletes. We know that. I mean, Miami's always going to have athletes. Florida's always going to have athletes. But who do you think's got athletes 2 and 3 deep right now? I say the Gators.
Yeah, well, one athlete that a lot of people are going to have their eyes on is Tate Martell, old Tate Martell. Getting the transfer in from Ohio State down to Miami where he thought he had the job, but Jaron Williams gets the nod at quarterback. So where on the field do you think we see Tathan line up first? Quarterback, receiver, or do we think that this isn't his week? What do you say, JJ?
I don't think we see him on the field at all. I mean, you're not going to throw a guy out there who's never played receiver in his life. You're not going to throw him out there in a rivalry game. Manny Diaz wants to solidify himself. He wants to go get a win. I don't think they're going to throw him out there week 1 at a receiver. And we don't even know if he's the backup quarterback. You could say maybe he sees the field as the backup quarterback if Jaron Williams gets an injury or anything. But you don't know if N'Kosi Perry is actually the backup. Tate Martell could be the 3rd-string quarterback in Miami.
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, he was the number 2 dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. And so, the kid is obviously an athlete. And so keeping him off the field, I don't know. Like, you want to keep your athletes on the field as much as you can, right?
Yeah, and for me, it's a situational thing. I mean, he is a pretty tremendous athlete, but he's already the verdict is sort of out by his head coach. You're not the starting guy. You're not the best guy at this position. I don't think they're going to keep him off the field, but I don't know unless there's an injury. I don't see him at quarterback tomorrow.
Did you guys see the Tate Martell drinking game for this weekend? Take a drink every time the camera pans to him. Finish your drink if he goes in at receiver. Take a shot if he catches a pass, and I don't know, chug the bottle if he scores a touchdown. But I mean, it's this has become the sideshow that college football fans love. Like, there's a lot of sideshow, a lot of drama here surrounding this one player. So.
And can I make a point? If it brings down Miami's overall team performance this year because of the noise from that, is this kind of a verdict against the transfer portal?
I mean, absolutely, right? You've got to think that, if you're going to bring guys like this and then not play them, then, you're not only setting up these athletes. I think it sets a bad precedent, and it could hurt your opportunities to get players in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like when you're recruiting, you promise a guy that he's going to be the guy, but next year you're recruiting someone, he's better. You look at a Jacob Eason versus Jake Fromm at Georgia. I mean, Eason looks like he's going to be the job. He looks like he's going to be the guy, and then Fromm comes in. He's better the next year. I'm sure that Kirby Smart promised Eason that he was going to be their guy freshman year going forward, and then a better guy comes along. It's the same thing when you're messing with the transfer portal, but now you're messing with kids that don't have that much eligibility left. So you're really playing with fire there, but that's also kind of what they're kind of on their last leg, trying to get out there and transfer to something to a school that they can play at, especially quarterbacks. If you're a receiver, you're a lineman, you might be able to find your way onto the field in other ways, but if you're a quarterback, you're likely going to need to play a quarterback.
Yeah, and so much as the college football purists probably dislike the transfer portal, they kind of hope that maybe it will implode on itself, with some of the situations like you're talking about.
Yep. And one player Miami hasn't had to worry about has been a 3-time All-ACC Shaq Quarterman, who decided to forego the NFL draft, come back for his senior year with Pinckney. These guys may be the best 2 linebackers in the ACC, and they're lining up for Miami. Do you think that they're going to be enough to stop Felipe Franks and give the running game a tough day for Florida?
So me personally, I don't see them having as much of an impact as some might. They're obviously the cornerstone of that Miami defense this year. You have all 3 senior linebackers coming back, and they're going to be good against the run. I'd be more concerned if I was Miami about Felipe Franks actually being able to throw the ball. I know that Dan Mullen was in charge of Manny Diaz at Mississippi State for a while, but Dan Mullen is a great offensive coach, and he coached Felipe Franks up from being, a competent SEC quarterback by the beginning to middle of last year to being a real plus for that team down the stretch. When you look at his games against South Carolina, Michigan, Florida State, those games down the stretch, Felipe Franks was a very, very good quarterback. And now you're giving him a full offseason with Dan Mullen going up against Manny Diaz, who is going to be doing his first game as a head coach. It's a little bit different calling a defense when it's your first game as head coach, where instead of just being able to focus on what you're calling. I don't particularly see this one being very close because I do think Florida is actually going to put up some points on this Miami defense.
Yeah, one guy they're going to have their hands full with is Kadarius Toney. He's going to be the difference maker if they can find a way to get him the ball in space. I love this guy, Toney, the way he finishes. He lowers his head and finishes every touch that he has. You saw in the LSU game, just lowering his face and driving dudes backwards every single time he had the ball. I think he's going to be the big difference maker in this game.
Florida showed me so much against Michigan, and even though I know Michigan was torched by Ohio State for much of the season, they were a defensive team that just really did the job, and they did it really on both sides of the ball. Then they met Florida, and I mean, it really took it to a whole nother level. I was a skeptic. Florida, to me, until you can get past what Kirby's doing in Athens, and I was just really skeptical. Now it makes me question who I think will win the SEC East. So for tomorrow against Miami, I definitely have Florida by at least 10, possibly more. It's not going to be one-sided. And we'll talk about Miami's defense, by the way. I want to say something about them. Props to those guys. They are who they are. Talk to me after they've met Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, they are who we thought they were.
That's right.
Yeah, I hate it. We'll make those picks later on in the game. But first, I just want to remind everybody out there that even though we're broadcasting on Fridays moving forward, you don't have to wait until Friday to keep up with us. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and subscribe to the Twitch channel so you don't miss a moment from the stand.
Well done.
All right, we got those right there on board. Ooh, yeah.
You're getting good at it, man. Keep going.
Yeah, just talking through some college football. We're going to move now into our conference championship game predictions. And so here's what I want from you guys. We're going to work through the Power 5 conferences. I want to know today, who's your conference championship game predictions now that the Big 12 finally has a conference championship game again. And then we're going to talk through one unrelated storyline for each conference. So, JJ, kick us off in the ACC. Who do you got?
All right, so in the ACC, obviously got to have Clemson. Clemson's the top dog in the ACC. You could argue that if you take Clemson out of the ACC, that they might be a lesser conference than even the American Athletic Conference because they don't have any top dogs. They don't have any other horses to run with at the top of the conference.
Number 2 has got to be what, Syracuse?
Wake.
And Syracuse is ranked. They're not even in the top 20. You're talking about 2 teams in a whole conference that are ranked.
Exactly.
So Clemson's got to be it. They got to be the conference champion. So it's a matter of who comes out of the Coastal Division, and that's got to be Virginia this year because they're the last team hasn't won since the Coastal Division was established with 14 teams. The other 6 teams have all won one time. So it's Virginia's year. They got Bryce Perkins under under center again. He was very good last year, nearly led them to double-digit wins and a win over the Hokies for the first time in a very long time.
30 years since they've had a 10-win season. That's insane.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a long time. But they did win the national championship this year in basketball. Maybe it's their year for football as well.
Yeah, Bryce Perkins. I've got Virginia and Clemson as well. Bryce Perkins, by way of Arizona State, went to Arizona Western College, did his JUCO year so that he could transfer to another D1 school. Low-key had the best season for a quarterback in the Coastal. And so, like you said, almost got him to 10 wins last year. What about you, Ash? What are you thinking for your conference championship game?
It's pretty straightforward there for me in the ACC. I mean, Clemson was the second worst team in the NFL last year.
Oh,
think about that for a moment. They really were. I mean, the Raiders were the only team that was worse, and so they're going to win their side of the division. Virginia Tech, on the other hand, is who I picked. They want to send Bud Foster out on a high note this year. He's built great defenses there, and they'll win because of that.
I think if there's anybody that's going to stop Virginia, it's Virginia Tech, because for whatever reason, even when Virginia Tech having a bad year, they seem to always beat Virginia. That could be the game that decides who goes to the ACC title game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, really, there's
going to not
lose
to James Madison.
All right, so I'll kick off our unrelated storylines. I think we should all raise a glass right now to the death of Georgia Tech's triple option. So
I think that's worthy of 2 large bottles, actually. And it was not working. It was just not working. Paul Johnson, thank you, but it was not working, man.
It was entertaining.
What do we have to expect from Jeff Collins? Who knows anything about Jeff Collins? What are we thinking is going to happen this season down in Atlanta?
I get him confused with Terry Collins. I don't know.
Jeff Collins he's actually worked under Paul Johnson before. He's not going to go with their option offense. He's a very defensive-minded coach. He did a lot of really good things, continuing what Temple was doing under Matt Brohl. I think he's a good fit for Georgia Tech, at least for them to transition from an option offense to a more pro-style offense. But, man, it's going to take some time. You're talking about you probably don't have a real quarterback on the roster that's ready to take Power 5 snaps, as well as receivers who haven't run some of the routes that they're going to need to run or do some of the schemes that they're going to need to run in a long time, let alone the offensive linemen. It could be ugly very early on, but it could be entertaining to watch.
But there's no distinction for high school players. Like, this is the number 3 triple option fullback in the nation. These are athletes. These are college athletes. They'll be fine.
Yeah, but you're talking about I'd be most concerned about the offensive linemen. You're talking about offensive linemen who haven't had to pass block in a very long time.
Oh my gosh.
And but no, you look at
it's not easy. Have you ever
look at it? There's a big difference. They may have done it in high school, but there's a very big difference between pass blocking in high school and pass blocking against Clemson on the very first night of the season.
Let's just take Clemson out of the equation. Pass blocking against Wake Forest, okay? It's fundamentally a different thing. So for all of us overweight kids that had to play offensive line, props where props due,
Yeah, all right, okay, I can get that. Ash, what's your unrelated storyline?
Unrelated storyline over there in the ACC has probably got to be what kind of a mess is Louisville. We've changed coaches. We've done all this stuff. We don't have Papa John Schnatter associated with the program anymore. There's just so much going on there. Like, that whole athletic department to me just seems in shambles. I could literally see Louisville, and I'm sorry, Cardinals fans, I could literally see them go something like maybe 1-11.
Oof. Yeah, last year was just an embarrassment for the Louisville program, getting just blown out of games. It wasn't even competitive. It wasn't even close. Hopefully this year is a better yard.
Just to add on to that too, not only did they get blown out in every game, they missed out on their golden boy Jeff Brom too, who stayed at Purdue. They were really hoping that they could pull him in, and they didn't get him. They definitely did a good job pulling in Satterfield from Appalachian State, who I think is going to be a good coach for them. But, man, they got to give him a very long leash because it's going to take a very long time.
Because next year is not going to be it, and there is no Lamar Jackson in waiting up there, as far as I know.
Yeah, shout out to the Mountaineers. That might be the only mention you get all season on this show.
Well, until the Michigan discussion comes up, when do we do that?
Actually, that's great. Let's move into the Big Ten.
There we go.
Ash, who you got for the Big Ten championship game?
Big Ten for me. I think it's probably going to be a common thread here for all of us, but I like the Buckeyes again. I know we've got a whole new kind of regime starting there, but you know what not Keith Urban.
Yes, country music superstar and college football prodigy.
Mr. Nicole Kidman.
Nicole Kidman himself.
You know that. Oh, my wife just got home. Hey, wife.
Put the bottle down.
Here's the thing. Ohio State may be going through a change at the head coach position, but literally almost everything else on the staff is there. Plus the fact that you've got a kind of a big move from the quarterback position that's happened. Yes, one guy went to the NFL. You brought the new guy in. Defensively, they're in place. I mean, Ohio State recruits so well that I literally think anybody, one of us possibly, could come in there and get 10 wins. But it is big shoes to fill, and I worry a little bit about some disappointment. I don't think they get through the year undefeated. They win the Big Ten. Who do they play? Love the Hawkeyes. I love Iowa. They've got to be able to work out that mysterious 1 or 2 losses that they have every year. If they do that, it's the Hawkeyes and the Buckeyes.
Okay. All right. What do you think, JJ?
So I actually disagree with you a little bit on Ohio State. I think there are going to be growing pains. You're talking about a guy in Ryan Day who's never been a head coach before at any level, and you're going to throw him to the Sharks out in Ohio State. They may have
plus all the quarterback drama they've had.
Yeah, you may have a very talented roster, but you're talking about a guy who's never managed a clock, never managed a game before. It's going to be it's a lot different than just calling an offense. So I think they are going to actually struggle a little bit this year, and they will not represent the Big Ten East. I have Michigan. I think Jim Harbaugh finally breaks through this year. He's got the roster to do it. He's got a second-year quarterback coming. The biggest difference to me is that they brought in offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach from Alabama, Josh Gaddis. Very, very big addition for them, and they hopefully transition to a little bit more of a spread offense out there. But let me tell you, as a State fan who had Josh Gaddis as their wide receivers coach, expect very, very big things out of Michigan wide receivers this year.
Yeah, so the Michigan hype train's running right through the middle of Pennsylvania, obviously.
We'll see. So, and they get the Buckeyes in the big house.
So are you thinking that it's an 11-1 Ohio State or 10-2, or is it going to be the Michigan Ohio State game that determines who goes?
I still think it does, but I don't think Ohio State is going to be undefeated going into it. I do think that they'll have a loss or two going in. I could very easily see a 10-2 season for the Buckeyes, dropping a game to Nebraska or Northwestern at some point along the way. But I don't see them beating Michigan in the Big House this year.
So let me ask you this:
it will feel like a disappointment at 10-2, but let's be frank. I mean, they got slaughtered at Purdue a couple of years or last year, slaughtered at Iowa. Damn well should have lost to Maryland last year, to be honest. So I mean, it's not been perfect, but what Urban Meyer did there is stock the cupboard so well that I just think they can still get there. You might be right. Michigan might get them, but until they can prove it on the field.
That's fair. That's absolutely
Who are they playing?
I have them playing Wisconsin. Wisconsin's been a model of consistency.
That's quite the trendy pick.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are all over Nebraska, all over Purdue, all over Northwestern. How can you go against Wisconsin? They had their worst year under Paul Chryst, and they went 8-4, 9-4 bowl games. They are a very consistent program that was able to consistently get to 10 wins before the Big Ten West started to rebound a little bit. But they've got the best running back in the country in Jonathan Taylor. They've got one of the best offensive lines. And if Graham Mertz, the freshman quarterback, comes in and is the savior that everyone thinks he is, I could very easily see them running through the Big Ten West and getting back to the Big Ten championship game again.
Yeah, sure. I've got Ohio State as well for all the reasons we've already discussed, but I think this could be Minnesota's chance to really make a run at the conference championship game. I think PJ Fleck is going to row his stupid boat through a really easy cross-division schedule. They've got Rutgers, Maryland, and then Penn State at home. So it's a really easy cross-divisional schedule they've got. And then, that division itself is kind of really up in the air for all the same reasons you've said. For my unrelated storyline in the Big Ten, how short is the rope at Nebraska? After seeing the AP 25, it's pretty obvious that you can't spell Huskers without HYPE.
Yeah.
And how many games do they have to win this year before Frost can afford to lose? How many games can Frost lose before the corn people turn on him?
Oh, that's something we want to see. I mean, what would this be? Children of the Corn 18 at this point? I'm not sure, but it could be ugly. And I think that he probably has this year and probably a little bit more of a rope. Believe it or not, all the legacy, all the tradition at Lincoln, I think he's probably even got a little bit more rope than one of the guys we'll talk about maybe later, Willie Taggart at Florida State.
Okay.
I think he has a very big rope. Actually, I think people were pretty happy with the way they ended the season, going 4-2, and they want Scott Frost to be the guy. They lived through the Mike Riley years, which were just abysmal. They were abysmal, and I think Nebraska fans got some perspective, and they know that they don't want to go back to that. They think Scott Frost is the best chance they have. I think they give him at least a full recruiting cycle, regardless of the results this year, barring a cataclysmic 0-12 or 2-10, which I don't see that happening. I think there's too much talent. I think Adrian Martinez is too good. I think that they should be in the 6 to 8 win range.
Can I throw one more thing in there about Nebraska? The guy that is their top recruit for next year at the quarterback position is a senior quarterback at my alma mater high school, Muscle Shoals, Alabama. So that kid is he's a big kid. He's got a great arm, throws it well, but runs well as well. So Nebraska looking at him out of Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
Okay. All right, pushing ahead to the Big 12. Real quick, Ash, who you liking in the Big 12 this year?
Yeah, Big 12 is, some people are going to be bristling at this, but it's a rematch from last year. I'm going to go back down. It's coming down to Oklahoma and Texas again. I think Texas has the more clear path there. Oklahoma's replacing, a Heisman the last 2 years at quarterback, but Texas has that guy in there, and he's that good. Texas the easier road. Neither of them get there undefeated. It won't be perfect. Texas fell into it by default last year, and look for somebody like a TCU to mix it up, a Baylor to mix it up a little bit, but it's Oklahoma, Texas to me.
So I think all three of us think it's going to be OU, but JJ, tell me if you want OU versus the field, who you taking in the Big 12 this year?
OU versus the field, I would take OU. I don't think there's anybody that's beating them. I think that they're too talented. They have too much talent on offense, and you bring in Jalen Hurts, who has championship experience. He's been in spots over the last 3 years where he's won SEC championships. He's
really excited about Jalen out there.
You can't discredit everything that he's done and think that anybody in the Big 12, even Sam Ehlinger, is a more polished quarterback or a more pedigreed quarterback than he is. So I think with that alone, with all the talent, that they're definitely going to win the conference. I've been going back and forth on who I think they face. I think it's going to be between Iowa State and TCU, and I think it's really a coin flip between the two. But I'll go with Iowa State just because they have the returning quarterback in Brock Purdy.
Oh man, I cannot pass on that Iowa State Kool-Aid enough.
Yeah, I really buy into Matt Campbell. He is a very, very good coach who I think is continuing to do a lot with a little, and that little is starting to get bigger and bigger. He's starting to get better and better recruits. I think you're going to continue to see Iowa State trend in the positive direction as long as Campbell's there. And I think this year they topple over Texas and TCU, who, by the way, I think Texas is fourth in the Big 12 this year. I don't think that the hype is really there for them. They might have a 9-3 season, but I don't think they fare too well in the Big 12. At least
I'll buy Texas fourth in the Big 12 all day long. I think that's a hot take, and I want some more of that.
Is that a head coach killer? Fourth in the Big 12?
No way.
Not go the exact same record as the year before, and it's just that the Big 12, everyone around them got a little bit better. I think Texas lost a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. They lost a lot of receivers that Ehlinger really relied on, and I think that that's going to be a problem for them early on. And I don't think they quite recover from that to get back to the Big 12 title game.
Yeah, so I've got Oklahoma State in the title game. I think this year's going to be
surprise.
I think this year's going to be feast or famine. Obviously, I'm going to feast. So I don't like UT's chances against OU. So I think that the Red River Shootout goes OU's way. And I'm choosing to believe that Oklahoma State makes it 6 wins in a row in Austin. We have won 5 times in a row in Austin. Wow. No other school in the nation has been able to do that. It's been a decade since we've lost to Texas and Austin. They come or we're coming to Austin this year, and I think OSU finally clears one in Bedlam, but I think they lose the conference championship game because I'm biased, but I'm not delusional.
That stat about Texas and OU or OSU and Texas is pretty wild. I mean, that goes back to Mac Brown. They were still really good at that. I mean, OSU had some really good teams in 2011 and stuff too. So not
You're welcome.
Totally surprising. But
real quick, let's talk about Les Miles at Kansas. Do we think this has got to be the ultimate case study in can an elite coach turn around any program, right? Like this hasn't happened anywhere else. And it, now I got it. He's not the same coach he was when he won the championship with LSU. He's not the best coach in the conference. He's not even the best coach on his own campus. But do we see, Bill Self, let's be real.
Yeah, that's true.
Do we think that Les is going to be able to turn around Kansas anytime soon?
So now you have to define what a turnaround is for Kansas. Like if you're going to do a scientific study. You got to do a scientific study. You got to define, what is a success before you.
I think a bowl game is the ceiling. Do you think he gets a bowl game in the next 3 years? I think he
does.
Not this year, but next 3 years.
How long he wants to be there. Depending on how long he wants to be there, I think it's going to take a full recruiting cycle to get them there. But you saw he brought in a lot of recruits. He's taking advantage of that 2-year rule where he's got scholarships to play with. He's offering more than 25 this year, trying to get guys in sooner rather than later. I think that when it comes down to it, by the time he comes close to leaving, that they will be able to get to bowl games. Whether or not they can bring someone else in to continue that trend, or they fall right back to where they were, that I can't predict. But I do think that based on what we're defining as a successful turnaround for this program, I think Les Miles can get them there.
Okay. Jayhawk football does not have the legendary status that some do. When you started talking about coming in and replacing a good coach coming into a program, the places usually that they go are places like FSU or maybe Ohio State or somewhere like Michigan, that are pedigree blue chip programs. Yeah. So you go there, you can win with what's there. But Les, if you can get them to a bowl game in the next 3 years, I think that's a success.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think Les Miles is almost treating this, not to belittle it, but it's almost like a toy to him, because at this point he doesn't really have anything else to prove. He's a national championship coach. It's just kind of saying, can I do this? Can I prove it to other people that I can do something that most coaches wouldn't touch?
They'll be better, but the resounding answer, I'm afraid, is going to be no.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. SEC. This just means more. So who do you have? Let's start in Alabama, right there in the heart of SEC country. I've got some Bama fatigue, but what are you thinking for this year's conference championship game?
Boy, I'm going to come off as a literal pariah in my own household and probably online for doing this, but I got Georgia beating Auburn in the SEC championship.
Oh, did you miss the memo? No, we're owning our bias here.
I did, and it's one of these things where it's an odd year. We're talking about Auburn. Malzahn's probably coaching for his job, honestly. If he doesn't beat the Tide, if he doesn't beat the rivals, he's probably coaching for his job. And frankly, they got a Bo Nix quarterback from Pinson Valley High School that they have now named the starter, and I can see him becoming my Auburn fellow friend's golden boy. And he's literally that good. So he'll be well worthy of it. But I see Georgia taking them just because they're good and Georgia's good.
All right. JJ, what do you think?
So I'm not buying Auburn this year. I think Bo Nix is very good. He's a very good recruit, but he's not Trevor Lawrence. He's not Tua Tagovailoa. Wow, I can't say that. I tried to say that really quick. I don't have that linguistics degree that some of these.
Ash, help us out here.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah. So I'm just going to say Tua, if that's all right with you guys. He's not Trevor Lawrence. He's not Tua. He's not going to come in right away and take over. So I don't see anyone in the West Division, where in years past the West has been the better division. I don't see anybody in the West Division that challenges Alabama that heavily this year.
No way.
I don't think that LSU has the offense still, and I don't think that Auburn is going to be their typical odd year Auburn this year. I think Alabama cruises to the West Division title, and they win over Florida in the conference championship.
I think you're overlooking Texas A&M, who may have the best team on paper we've seen in a while. And Bama has to go to College Station. So I don't think you can overlook that game.
You have to look at Texas A&M's schedule and actually look at who they have to play. They could very easily be the best 7-5 team in the history of college football. That's how tough their schedule is.
But all they have to do is beat Bama to derail the West.
Not necessarily. If you lose, you might beat Bama, but if you lose to if you end up if LSU gets revenge for that 7 overtime game and you lose to Georgia, you also have to play. Bama can get away with that 1 loss to Texas A&M. I don't see Texas A&M only getting 1 loss in the SEC.
Yeah, can I say this about A&M? And on that point, they will play number 1 Clemson on the 7th. They will play 16th Auburn on the 21st, and they will also travel to Arkansas, which may not sound that tough, all before they play Alabama.
Yes.
So A&M, like to your point, A&M may be the 2nd best team in the conference or 3rd best, which is probably a reach, but they could have a very 500 record
schedule. Yeah,
they'll have a 500 record possibly.
Schedule. That's a tough schedule.
So I think Alabama cruises to the conference championship game. I have them up against Florida and not Georgia. I think Georgia ends their streak of going to the conference championship game under Kirby Smart. I think Dan Mullen, he's got a little bit more resources than he did at Mississippi State. I think he builds on what he did last year. I think he beats Georgia in the world's biggest cocktail party. I think he takes the East Division with that win in Jacksonville, and I think Alabama wins the SEC championship over Florida.
Very nice. Thank you.
All right. Hey, so nobody around here cares about the Pac-12 anyway. So we're gonna do our weekly Pac-12 seconds. You got 12 seconds starting right now to tell me who you think are gonna win. I'm counting down.
All right. I got Utah over Stanford. I'm not too high on Washington this year. I think Easton's a little overrated. My underrated storyline is when does Clay Helton get fired, not if.
All right, that's all the time we've got for the Pac-12. Your Pac-12 seconds are up. This has been the Pac-12 seconds brought to you by nobody this week because we don't have any sponsors. If you want to sponsor the Pac-12 seconds, just give us a call or drop us a line at fromthestandsmedia@gmail.com, and we'll be more than happy to put your name all over the Pac-12 seconds. True irony there would be a California business sponsoring the Pac-12 seconds. Hey guys, some things are more important. Nope, your Pac-12 seconds are up.
All right.
Hey, some things are more important than college football. Some things are bigger than the game. And one of those stories came out of the University of Texas at El Paso yesterday, as we learned that tight end Luke Laufenberg, has lost his battle with cancer. Obviously, this is terrible news, like legitimately terrible news coming out of UTEP. So my question to you guys is, what do you think is how do we best pay homage to Luke as we work through this season? How do you think UTEP pays homage to Luke?
It's been a tough last few weeks in El Paso anyway, with the disaster that happened with the shooting in Walmart out there, and I feel like that's a community that could use a little bit of uplifting, and maybe they look to that program to do something on that Saturday, on that game there, to kind of lift everybody's spirits. And so it's also a military stronghold. So I think just maybe see some sort of a flyover would be really good.
Yeah, Luke, 21 years old, originally, was going to go to Arkansas, shifted to A&M after Nick Starkel went there, but then ended up at UTEP after he was diagnosed. Took some time off to fight it. They thought that he was in remission and good to go, so he came back to the game and then left the program in July. So terrible news coming out of UTEP this week. So really, all the Miners fans that we have out there watching the game, we're with you. Going to be rooting for UTEP a little bit more this year, on top of, like Ash said, the shooting out there. This community kind of really needs something to rally around. And so
they're strong people. They'll do it.
Absolutely. So go Miners from an Oklahoma State fan. I think I got a Bama guy and a Penn State guy that are rooting for you guys as well.
Hats off to you.
Yeah. So September's right around the corner, guys, and every year we crown our September Heisman. So let's go ahead and make some predictions right now. Who do we think we have in our September Heisman?
Gentlemen?
I'll start off. Yeah, no,
I'll start.
Too late. Justin Fields, I alluded to him earlier. He's got a really favorable schedule. Home games starting out against Florida Atlantic, Cincinnati, Miami, Ohio, and a road trip to Indiana before he goes to Nebraska on the 28th. So he could easily be one of those guys that is going into that game in Nebraska, one of those more touchdowns than incompletions guys. And ESPN is talking about video game stats, which is funny because the NCAA doesn't even have a video game anymore. Not to mention Mike Yursich, the old Oklahoma State offensive coordinator, took the demotion to go be quarterbacks coach at Ohio State. So I got to watch him develop Mason Rudolph at OSU. I think he's going to do great things for Josh Fields, and I think he's going to be one of those guys that there in the first half of the season that really steps up and jumps to the top of a lot of Heisman lists.
Oh, good deal.
JJ, who you got? Nope,
So
Ash, sorry.
I got a little
nope.
bit. I got a little bit of an outside the box one. I got Kellen Mond out of Texas A&M.
Didn't you guys just shit on me for the A&M?
And this is the exact reason why, because Texas A&M is a very good football team. They're going to keep at the very minimum. They're going to keep it close against teams like Clemson and Alabama this year. They are very good under Jimbo Fisher, and Kellen Mond is a very talented quarterback, especially when he can channel his better side that we saw in games against LSU and Clemson last year. You're going to have the opportunity to have a Heisman-type moment against Clemson very early in the season. That's something that a lot of the pundits really like to tout, is that you got to have that Heisman moment. He could have a Heisman moment even in a loss against Clemson early in the season that kind of starts to propel him up into the conversation with Tua and Trevor Lawrence. And then he's got games against Texas State and Lamar sandwiched right around that game against Clemson. You want to talk about video game stats?
Yep.
There are not very many teams that you could put up video game stats better than against those two teams. So I think that he'll have the stats. He can potentially have a Heisman moment, even in a loss. And he'll also have games against Auburn and Arkansas that he could have going into October, where he faces Alabama as, maybe Heisman.
This is what I'm saying. A&M, this is a good year for them in the West. I still like A&M. Ash, if you're going to tell me Jalen Hurts right now, I'm going to this stream.
Well, surprisingly, I actually have learned something that Jalen's transferred to Oklahoma. I just came into the call here, and he's not there anymore.
Guys, breaking news on From the Stands.
I mean, anyway, of course I'm going to go with my guy in Tuscaloosa, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, he's got Duke to start with, New Mexico State, South Carolina, which is a road trip and will be the test because the next 2 weeks are Southern Miss and somebody named Ole Miss. And each of those games he's going to have 500 yards passing and as many touchdowns as his arm can handle. So it's going to be like September of last year where the numbers were piling up and it's epic. And you forget about the whipping that Clemson and honestly Georgia gave Tua at the position last year. So it's my guy in Tuscaloosa, Tua Tagovailoa.
All right. Hey, so, we've got college football this week. We don't have to worry about September Heisman. College football is back. And so let's make some picks. What do you guys say?
All for it. Let's do it.
All right. Hey, so the first game we've got up here is the Youngstown State at Samford game. And I think we had a guest picker that we're going to welcome onto the stage here in just a minute. But before we do, this is two FCS schools getting some national love, kicking off Saturday at 2 p.m. Central on ESPN. So Samford, the 2-touchdown favorite in the 2019, wait for it, Guardian Credit Union FCS kickoff at the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh my God,
Such
the
T-shirt.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
The T-shirt almost as good on both sides. I mean,
yeah, it just wraps all the way around.
Oh,
all right, hey, that's in your neck of the woods, Ash. Are you going to that?
I'm missing out. I've got some things I got to do.
Yeah, we're gonna smoke a brisket and maybe have that on in the background.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this, I think.
Maybe I'll just watch this. Maybe I'll watch our broadcast on repeat instead of this game.
There might be golf this weekend. I'm not sure. Check on that for me.
Or championship this weekend.
All right, hey, so we got to make a pick, and since all I know about these two teams is about as much as my 1-year-old daughter, I'm gonna welcome our guest picker here to the set.
1-year-old daughter.
Hey, everybody. This is Charlie. Can you say hi? Hi. Say hi, everybody. Hello.
We mean you no harm.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, guess what? If you want to be a guest picker here and not my daughter, Charlie, you're more than welcome to drop us a line at fromthestandsmedia@gmail.com, and we can work something out. Oh, there it is. Hey, everybody. So since she knows about as much of these two teams as I do, I've got a couple of cups here labeled. Let's see if I can get them in here. So I got Youngstown State and Sam. These are on Eskimo Joe's cups, by the way. So Eskimo Joe's, we'll send you a bill for this product placement. All right, here's what we're going to do. Let me get these lined up. Make sure they're in the frame. Push them over this way. Nope, this way. Good deal. All right. So, Charlie, which team do you think is going to win? Which one do you want? Which one? Oh, she doesn't like either. She came up with a Sanford. Go.
It's going to be
exactly
blowout.
Who I was going to pick, actually.
Oh,
there you go. So she's
that Youngstown State
she's
Cup.
killing it right there. So we've got Sanford right there. And so thank you so much, buddy. Say bye-bye. 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 Okay, got to go. Hey, if you want to be a guest picker here on From the Stands, just drop us a line, and we can set that up. The Patreon will be live. Maybe that's going to be one of the things that we can do. But all right, what do you guys think? Next up, Colgate and Villanova. I've gotten to watch these two schools play before, but one was in basketball and the other was in lacrosse. So I'm really not sure about these ones either. What do you guys think?
I got Colgate. These are up in my neck of the woods, even though they're FCS schools. Kind of followed Colgate last year. Pretty crazy story. They had 29 straight quarters in the middle of the season without allowing a touchdown.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
7 games that they didn't allow a touchdown. They've got a pretty impressive defense. If you, for some reason, are just that much of a degenerate, want to bet on FCS football, bet under in this game.
Yeah, if you're a degenerate gambler and feel the need.
Yes. If you don't get enough from betting on the FBS game, you need to go to FC. Bet the under in this game because Colgate's defense is legit. They beat James Madison last year. I got them winning this one.
Yeah,
and because
absolutely.
I said the Clemson Tigers earlier were better than the Oakland Raiders in the NFL last year, I'm going to take the Colgate Raiders in this one just like you guys. I think that I need to give them a little bit of props there, and so Colgate pulls it off.
I'm going to dime Ash out. Before this started, he didn't even know the Raiders. So go ahead and hitch your wagon to that horse.
Props for improvising on the fly.
All right, hey, let's talk some real football. To the FBS, we've got Arizona and Hawaii as the Saturday nightcap. This game kicks off at 10:30 Eastern. Ash, you're in the Eastern time zone there, right? You staying up for this
Central
one?
Central time zone.
I'm still at 9:30 kick. Yeah, JJ Eastern. You staying up for this one? The 10:30 kickoff?
Not a chance.
Well, we only got 4 games this week. I got to watch them all. So, yeah.
All right. Okay. So Hawaii is looking for a huge year. You know, they return 18 starters. That's more than anybody else in their conference. Quarterback Cole McDonald threw for almost 4,000 yards last year. But the O-line is really going to need to step up because they let him take 34 sacks last year. That's a lot of times for the quarterback to get hit. And that's going to be key if they want. I think that's going to be key if they want to win this game. What do you guys say?
So you mentioned Cole McDonald. He threw for almost 4,000 yards on a partially torn meniscus starting in September. He finished the season after that. And it definitely dropped off Hawaii's level of play, but they started out 4-1 last year. Teams don't typically do well when they have to travel to Hawaii. And I think this is they're one of the bigger underdogs this week, but I think they have the best chance of pulling off the upset. I'm going to go with Hawaii to pull off the upset at home. If you are a bettor, I would definitely bet Hawaii plus 11 is a lot on the road opening weekend. Underdogs.
Now hold up.
Home underdog of the season of the week. Home underdogs in week 0 or week 1 cover 70% of the time.
Hold up now. We've got Mr. September Heisman 2017 Khalil Tate on the other side of the ball. And so he's going to get another shot. Kevin Sumlin's going to get another shot to help him prove he's ready for the league, ready to go to the pros. If Tate gets rolling, you know, it could be a long night on the Big Island.
We're still talking about Kevin Sumlin, who gave up one of the biggest comebacks of all time when he was at A&M in the very season. I'm
with you guys 100%. I think Hawaii's dangerous at their place. I just don't think Arizona's got it all put together just yet. They may as the season goes along, but Kevin Sumlin hasn't proven to me anything, honestly, even his years at A&M, other than his Johnny Manziel moment in Tuscaloosa, which I sadly was at. Other than that game, what the hell has he put together? He never went to the conference championship game. He's now got a year or 2 in at Arizona, and it's nothing there. I mean, Hawaii big. I mean, 3 touchdowns or more here.
That's more than I think it's a coin flip between the two, but I would definitely take Hawaii plus 11. I don't think it's more than
I'm taking Arizona to win and cover, and that's what I've got on this one.
Hey, it's your money, man.
Hey, that's a lot more than I expect you to cover on the Pac-12. So,
hey, so
no, take it all back. We're supposed to talk about the Pac-12.
You squeezed a couple more seconds out of me. Hey, we gave the preview on this one earlier in the show. Now let's talk winners. What do you guys think for Miami, Florida?
I guess I'll start since I gave mine away earlier and everything. I think Florida also takes it fairly large. It won't be a big score because, like I said, Miami's very physical. Florida is as well. So depending on the weather a little bit, I think it's an issue to think about. They're both used to playing in humidity. But if there is a lot of water on that field, it's going to really bring that score down. But I like Florida by a touchdown or more possibly.
Okay.
So the line on this game is hovering around 7 points. I think that's way too low for Florida. I like Florida a lot. I think they win comfortably. I think it's a little bit of a letdown of a start to the season for your FBS teams. I think you're talking about a Miami team that's starting a redshirt freshman quarterback in Jaron Williams, 2 freshman tackles on left tackle and right tackle, and you're talking about an SEC level pass rush. I don't see Miami putting up a lot of points, and I think Felipe Franks continues to build on what he finished last season on. I think that the game goes under only because Miami doesn't put up a lot. I think it's to the tune of something like 34-10.
No, see, wow. I think I'm not with you guys at all. I think Jalen Williams has a lot to prove in this game. I think he's going to come out and sling the ball around, prove all the QB1 fans on Netflix and the Tate Martell fans wrong. Miami, they have, I think, a defense is as good in the conference as any behind Clemson and maybe Syracuse. But I've got faith that they're going to be able to contain. Yeah. I think they're going to be able to contain Tony and Franks, and I think that that's going to be enough in this week 1 game to get them a win over Florida.
Oh, so, man, the U, huh?
Yeah.
That's the money line.
There you go. Yeah, man. Somebody's got money on it. Think about your daughter. Think about your child, okay? Go with Florida on the money.
Hey, we got to pay for her college somehow, all right?
I hear you.
Hey, guys, you know what else I love besides college football, and that's random internet companies and their ship-to-home product. If only there was a company out there willing to pay us to share our love of their products with our viewers, even if it's just our moms watching. So if you're a random viewer or a company owner, or you have the ability to make any marketing purchasing decisions whatsoever, you can go ahead and shoot us a note. But fans out there, if you enjoyed what you saw today, hey, we've got a Patreon that's going to help you make this show better. Maybe we can cut down on Ash's, get him a better battery, or get him a new power cable so he can plug in. And we don't have the same technical difficulties next week. Check for the links that we'll have on the website, on the Facebook, the Twitter. Check us out. Stay connected. We want this to be a community. We want to hear back from you. And so that brings us to the close of our first episode, guys. We did it. We made it through the pilot.
That was fun. Great fun. Thanks for doing it.
Glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
Anyone out there wants to do more on the Pac-12 or anything else, come join us. We're looking for more people. We're always looking for people to join us.
Yeah, absolutely. If you thought this show sucked and you can make it better, hey, by all means, come and do it for us.
Yeah. Tell us about it. We're gonna ignore it, but you can tell us anyway.
Yeah, we'll be back.
We'll just tell you why you're wrong.
That's right.
We'll be back next week for our week 1, the full slate of college football. I'll be live from Oregon State at Wrestler Stadium for the OSU versus OSU Orange and Black Bowl. And so I'm going to be without you guys, but I'll chime in and we'll get it going. So that's it from the stands. Let's kick it back over to whatever the hell else you were doing.